You know, Alex, they say, you never forget your first love. But in my case, I never forget the first time I tried to weld a floor pan into a 74 Nova and ended up setting the backseat on fire because I was too stubborn to clear out the interior.
Well, welcome to the Tiger Den, everyone. Today, we're talking about automotive welding and fabrication. Basically, how to melt metal together without burning your garage down, or at least how Tiger learned to stop doing that.
It's a delicate dance between craftsmanship and chaos. When you're working on a vehicle, you aren't just joining two pieces of steel, you're performing surgery on something that's going to hurtle down the highway at 70 miles an hour. If your furniture breaks, you drop a sandwich. If your car frame fails, well, the consequences are a bit more scenic.
Precisely. And for a lot of our listeners, the idea of taking a torch to their car is terrifying. Is it actually as expert level as it looks, or can a regular human with a decent set of gloves handle it?
It's more accessible than it's ever been, but it's definitely a discipline of patience. I've seen guys treat a welder like a hot glue gun, just squiggling beads all over a patch panel and hoping for the best. That's how you get what we call bird poop welds. Lumpy, weak, and honestly, an insult to the birds.
I've seen your bird poop phase, Tiger. It wasn't pretty. But if we're talking entry points, every resource we look at points toward MIG welding. Why is that the gold standard for the home garage?
It's the point and click of the welding world. With MIG, or metal inert gas, you have a spool of wire that feeds through the gun at the touch of a trigger. It's consistent. You aren't trying to rub two sticks together to find a spark like you are with old school stick welding, and you don't need the three-limbed coordination required for TIG. For auto body specifically, MIG is the king because it handles thin stuff, like that 24 gauge sheet metal on fenders, without blowing a hole through it the second you pull the trigger. It's fast, it's clean, and if you've got a steady hand, it makes you look like a pro a lot faster than the other methods.
Okay, let's talk about that blowing a hole through it part, because that sounds like the number one fear. You're working on a project car, you've spent weeks prepping the metal, and then zap. There's a gap where there should be a seam.
That's the sound of a grown man weeping in a dark garage. The secret isn't just in the trigger, it's in the prep. Most people think welding is 90% melting stuff. In reality, it's 90% cleaning. If you try to weld through 10 years of road salt and 3 layers of grandpa's favorite primer, the arc is going to jump around like a cat in a bathtub. You need that metal looking like a fresh minted nickel.
So you can't just burn through the rust?
Only if you want a weld that has the structural integrity of a wet cracker. I've spent more hours with an angle grinder in my hand than I have with an actual welding torch. You've got to bevel those edges on thicker parts like a frame rail so the molten metal actually has a trench to sit in. If you just lay it on top, you're basically just icing a cake that's made of air.
I love that. Icing an air cake. So, say I've got my MIG set up, my metal is shiny, and I'm ready to go. What's the biggest mistake you see people make when they actually start the bead?
Rushing. Everyone wants to see that perfect stack of dimes look immediately. But on a car, especially on body panels, heat is your mortal enemy. If you just run a long, beautiful 6-inch bead down a door skin, that metal is going to warp so badly, it'll look like a bag of smashed walnuts by the time you're done.
Because the heat expands the metal, right?
Exactly. It grows, it buckles, and it stays that way. You have to stitch it. A spot here, a spot there. Go get a coffee, let it cool, then fill in the gaps. It's like being a very slow, very hot seamstress.
Speaking of seamstresses, let's talk about the elegant cousin, TIG welding. I see the motorsport guys, the ones building roll cages and custom headers, using TIG. If MIG is for everyone, is TIG just for the elite makers?
It's definitely the black belt level. TIG gives you ultimate control. You're holding the torch in one hand, the filler rod in the other, and your foot is on a pedal controlling the heat. It's like playing the drums while trying to write a letter in cursive.
Well, I've seen you try to do both, and the cursive usually looks like a doctor's prescription.
Fair point. But for things like stainless steel exhaust or aluminum radiators, TIG is non-negotiable. It's clean, there's no spatter, those tiny little molten BBs that fly everywhere with a MIG. If you're building a show car where the underside needs to look as good as the top, you TIG it. But for a guy fixing a floorboard in his driveway, stick with the MIG. It's a lot less likely to make you want to throw your helmet through a window.
Speaking of helmets, let's talk safety, because I know you have some hard-won stories about skipping the gear.
I once spent a whole evening welding in a t-shirt because it was 90 degrees in the shop. The next morning, I woke up with a sunburn so bad, my skin was peeling off in sheets. I'd basically
Basically giving myself a radiation burn from the arc light.
That's terrifying. And people forget that it's not just the sparks, it's the UV.
It's basically a miniature sun at the end of your arm. You need the auto-darkening helmet, the leather apron, and please, for the love of your lungs, ventilation. Welding on a car often means burning off old bitumen, undercoating, or zinc galvanization. That smoke will make you feel like you swallowed a box of nails by the end of the day.
I think that's a great segue into the fabrication side of things. In the sources we looked at, James Hull from the High Performance Academy mentioned that beginners often fail at the design stage before they even touch a tool.
James is spot on. My favorite tool in the shop isn't made of steel. It's a stack of old cereal boxes. CAD, cardboard-aided design.
Wait, you actually call it that?
Every fabricator worth their salt does. If you can't make it out of a Cheerio box and some masking tape, you have no business cutting into a $40 sheet of cold-rolled steel. I've seen people eyeball a bracket, spend 2 hours grinding it, only to realize the bolt hole is half an inch off because they didn't account for the bend radius.
It really is a game of measure 17 times, cut once, and still probably have to grind a bit.
Exactly. And people underestimate the total system. They think about the weld, but they don't think about what the weld is attached to. If you're welding a heavy-duty winch mount to a frame that's rusted through to the thickness of a potato chip, you haven't fixed anything. You've just made a very heavy projectile.
So how do you know when you've gone too far? When is a part too far gone to be saved by a weld?
If you hit it with a chipping hammer and it sounds like you're tapping on a hollow pumpkin, it's done. You need solid parent metal. I always tell people to keep grinding back until the sparks change color and the metal stops looking like flaky pastry. If you try to weld to flake, the weld will just peel off like a scab.
That is a vivid and slightly gross analogy.
The shop is a visceral place, Alex.
We've covered the how, but let's talk about the why for a second. For someone sitting at home with a car that's seen better days, what's the threshold for them to go out and buy a welder? Is it worth the investment?
Here's the reality. If you take a car to a professional body shop for rust repair, they're going to quote you a get-lost price. Not because they're mean, but because it's incredibly labor-intensive. For the cost of one major repair at a shop, you can buy a top-tier Miller or Lincoln MIG setup, all your safety gear, and enough gas to last you a year.
So it pays for itself in one big job?
Easily. But more than that, it's the freedom. It's the ability to look at a broken bracket or a hole in a fender and say, oh, I can fix that. It turns you from a consumer into a creator. There's a specific kind of quiet satisfaction when you grind a weld flush, hit it with a little paint, and you can't even tell there was ever a hole there. It's like magic, but with more fire.
I've seen that look on your face. It's usually right before you realize you've welded your pliers to the workbench.
Hey, that only happened twice. And those pliers are now a permanent structural feature of that bench. They aren't going anywhere.
Spoken like a true master. Before we wrap up, give me one more tiger truth for the person who just bought their first welder and is staring at it in the box, feeling intimidated.
Don't start on the car. Go to the local scrapyard, buy a pile of steel offcuts, and spend 3 days just making joining things your hobby. Learn what it sounds like when the settings are right. It should sound like bacon frying in a pan, a nice, consistent sizzle. If it sounds like a machine gun, your wire speed is too high. If it's popping and spitting, you're too far away.
Listen to the bacon.
Exactly. Once you can make 2 pieces of scrap stay together under the blow of a sledgehammer, then, and only then, do you walk over to your car.
That's solid advice. Take the time to get the ugly out of the way on the stuff that doesn't matter.
Your first weld should be embarrassing. If they aren't, you aren't learning. Just make sure the embarrassment stays on the scrap heap, not on your daily driver.
Well, I think that's our cue. Whether you're patching a floorboard or just trying to understand the wizardry happening in your local garage, remember that every master was once a beginner with a pile of bird poop welds.
Stay safe, keep your eyes shielded, and for heaven's sake, move the gas can away from the sparks before you pull the trigger.
Words to live by. Literally. Thanks for joining us in the Tiger Den.